and good evening. Welcome once again to Branco Broadcast. My name is Bob Branco. With us this evening is author and poet Ann Chiappetta. Ann is going to talk about her latest book that's just been released. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, everybody, for coming to the call. I'm going to start do a little bit of biographical stuff, who I am, and how I got into this writing thing. So I've been writing since probably the seventh grade. I had a lot of help. I had low vision most of my life, so I wore very thick glasses, and I was what they would call a dreamer. Always had my head in the clouds and dreaming about stories, and I loved to read. I loved just everything having to do with art, and so I was always pretty clued into the creative side of myself, maybe at some level, and I think a lot of my mentors recognized that, bless them, and they helped me develop my creativity in terms of writing and a little bit of art, and they even managed to get me up on stage and do some Shakespeare, which I don't know if I do that again. But when you're young, you try things out and you take chances. So that's a little bit my early history. I was born and raised in a little harbor town in Westchester County, and had some strife, in terms of my parents divorced when we were young, and we got we had to go from being in a house to being in an apartment. So I went through a lot from age 9 to about age 15 in terms of just family dynamics and stuff, and all of that made its way into my poetry at some level at some point in time, because it was like I had to write out all of the things that I experienced, not so positive things and some positive things as well. So a lot of my poetry is about how I felt at the time something happened, or my relationship with people in my family, things like that. So anyway, moving on. I moved around a lot until I was 23. I went to California, and I lived there, and then I came back to New York, and I settled down, and I got married. And then when I was pregnant with my first child, things had started happening to me in terms of my vision, and after my son was born, I realized my vision was failing. I was working as a furniture designer for an acrylic factory, making acrylic furniture, lucite furniture, and I couldn't read the line drawings anymore. I was having trouble reading the computer, everything from the calculator numbers, everything. So I went and got some tests, and the test came back that I had retinitis pigmentosa, and I was going to eventually lose my vision, and there was no cure. It was just the most devastating thing I've ever had to do. I didn't know what. I remember sitting there in the ophthalmologist's office and just being so devastated and numb, and it was horrible. And that horrible feeling stayed with me for a long time. Fortunately, I got a lot of help, and a lot of angels came out of the woodwork, including my ophthalmologist. He was a wonderful man, and he got me set up with the Commission for the Blind, and I got a wonderful counselor who to this day I still keep in touch with. Her name is Wendy. They got me in touch with a mental health counselor to help me through my depression and my grief and losing my vision. So there were a lot of people who helped me get me where I am today, and without those people, I probably would not be here. So big thanks goes to them, and they all know who they are. So after the rehab of learning how to live as a blind person, that took a while. I did courses through the Hadley Institute for the Blind. I went to undergraduate school for 4 years, and then I went on to get a graduate degree in marriage and family therapy from Iona College in New York. During that time, I was still writing. I was writing. I wrote in journals. I wrote poetry. I wrote just everything I could, if I needed to write and I needed to get out my feelings, I did it. And that also helped a lot. It was very cathartic for me. A lot of those things I don't have anymore because a lot of those things were part of the past for me. And to be honest, some of those journals, I actually had a ritualistic burning of some of that stuff because I felt that was part of my past I didn't go back to. I had persevered past that. But I kept a lot of the poetry, and some of the poems, one or two of them go back to 1995, which is around the time my daughter was born. I've been also rehabbing some of the older poems and may make it in my next collection. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing. Writing is the way I find out what I think. For a long time, I didn't know how to I don't know, I guess to think about, things. Everything from politics to how I wanted to raise my children. I felt a lot of times because of my blindness that I didn't have that communication level with myself because I felt shut off not only from other people but also a part of me was shutting down, and it was because I was going through some depression and some serious I guess some sadness, and some grief over losing my vision, and my vision never stayed the same. I would have a year or two where it would stabilize, and then a year or two where it would get worse, and I would lose a little more. And I went from losing 12% to 15 to 20 to 30, and then my biggest plunge with my vision loss was around 2006 or 7 when I had just finished up my graduate degree, and I lost about 25% and almost my whole visual field from macular degeneration and RP. So there was a lot of that, that pieces of grief, all along my life, and writing helped me find out how to move past that. So that's what I mean about finding out. I write to find out what I think. In terms of the meaning of the book, upwelling, upwelling is the upwelling of feelings and emotions during my life, and the poems that I've written to share with other people, to let them know who I am and what I think. And it's an extraordinary thing when you publish your first book. I know Lenore is on the call, but I was a nervous wreck. I said, I'm doing this thing, and all these people are going to know what I think and how I feel about all of these deeply personal things. Am I ready for that? And I was. I said, okay, I'm ready, and I'm going to do it. So, and here I am, and I'm still kind of shocked in a way. I'm still like, wow, I really did that. So, anyway, I have something I've written here. Why I wrote the book? Because I was ready to write the book, and what started me thinking about putting the book together was the loss of my mother, and I'm also a trauma counselor. Professionally, and I was reading something about how trauma can propel people to do extraordinary things with their lives, things that they wouldn't normally have said that they want, things that they would normally have been afraid to do. And I think that's what happened with me. I think, the loss of my mom pushed me into doing this because, at some point after we lost our mom, I was like, well, I'm not getting any younger, and, time is short, and we don't know how much time we have left, so why am I procrastinating about this thing? And that's really what got me started was that whole, losing mom and really taking a deep look at my life and what I really wanted to accomplish and be known for, and, what legacy I wanted to leave behind. So all those things made it into that poetry book. Whether you pick up on that or not, that's all up to the reader and the subjectivity of poetry, but that's really how it felt, and it still feels that way, and that's why the book is dedicated to my mom. And I'm glad I didn't go to the more traditional route because I feel very fortunate that I found the Dworkins and that I read Patty Fletcher's book, and that's what got me to them. So it's like all a chain. I just feel kind of amazed that all these little pieces of information got to me that at the time they did, at the right time, and I found the right people, and that's what makes the book very special to me. It's because of the people as well, not just the book itself. Some people have asked me, what are the challenges of self-publishing and doing ebook publishing, and the largest challenge, I guess, of course, is finding the right people to help you, which was done, and the next part is promoting the book. You have to ask yourself, some pretty serious questions. How am I going to do this? What are my talents, and what am I lacking, or what am I not going to be able to do? Am I going to be able to march into these little bookstores and sell myself or not? Will I be able to follow up on phone calls and do guest appearances? And how am I going to read my poetry? If that takes practice and consideration, and there's an element of stage fright, things like that. So. And I'm still working those things out. So this book is definitely a testing ground. And so far, things have been wonderful. Some things have been really tough about it. But mostly it's just been great. And I've had a lot of fun. And I think that's what I try to concentrate on, is having fun. And not so much on the success of the book in terms of sales or anything, but just having fun and just, sharing it with people. So, I think I'm going to read you one of my poems. It's the first poem that opens the book. It's called Line by Line, and I've been practicing it, so hopefully it will come out okay. The poem, again, is called Line by Line by Chiappetta. One character at a time creates the word, words strung together with others, defines a sentence, forming into lines. Lines collect into paragraphs, transforming a blank screen, filling a file with text. One page at a time conveys a thought, identifies a feeling, recorded one syllable at a time. A breath, an intonation expresses a desire to act. One movement at a time pushes awareness to the sweet spot, the goal. Recollections via the pinnacle of the mind. The story coalesces by character, word, line, page. Memories stated by thought, feeling, emotion, action. Assembled page by page. Experience gathered only with reflections and the acuity of time. there you go. And that was written in 2015, and I wrote it specifically to introduce the poetry. Then I'm going to go back up here. Hang on. Okay. I also would like to give some, if anybody has any questions about how I write or how to get through writer's block or anything like that, feel free to ask those questions. I'm not going to go into that now because I want to be more specific with you all. Bob, how much time do you want for questions?
First of all, we've got until almost 8 o'clock. If I may interject, there are two things I want to say right now, if I may. As a fellow author, I know what it's like to have the feeling of, oh, did I really just do that? Because I remember after I published my first book, and I was reading all of what I had written, especially after Leonore proofread and edited it, I said the same thing you said. I said, did I really do that? In fact, I sounded like Urkel of Family Matters. Did I do that? Yes, I did. And I also want to add something, if I may, I first heard of you when we were colleagues over at Matilda Ziegler.
Yes.
That's where I first heard of you.
That's what I got to know you and the other writers as well. And Karen Crowder, and you, myself, Romeo Admead, Lynn Tatum.
Steve Famiglietti, Terry Winnott.
Yeah, Terry Winnott, yeah.
John Christie, Roger Jacasey.
And there was another lady who was, I can't remember her name. Oh wait, it escapes me. But anyway, yeah, we had a bunch of really good people, and we all wrote about different stuff, and it was a nice group, and I miss it. I still miss it.
We all do.
Yeah, what a shame. Well, look where we are now. Something like the Matilda Ziegler magazine helped us push ourselves to do better things. And I think if Ross Hammond was here now, he would be smiling to hear that.
Bob, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Anne, it's nice to hear your voice. Of course, first time I hear you, but I used to read your article in the Matilda Ziegler. And I now know that you have a good taste since you have Leonore as an editor.
Thank you.
Both Leonore as well as her husband, they're just delightful people. Now,
yes.
I have read, like many of the very famous writers, most of the time I come across from their background, they usually come from a kind of a family just described how the parents got divorced very early age. Especially that affects children every time the divorce is under 12 years old. I wonder how much that separation or kind of difficulty at the young age as you experienced 9 years old, did that affect with your writing that you obviously were thinking a lot, is what's happening. So, and then you decided, and that helped you a great deal with your writing. Does that have anything to do with it at all?
That's an excellent question, and I would say yes. Yes, I think that there were so many questions in my head at that time when I was going through experiencing my parents' divorce, so many questions that were not answered, and I still don't have some of the answers. It's very interesting. Your question leads me up to one of the poems I wanted to read last, but maybe I'll read it now because it's very apropos to what you just said. It's a poem about my dad and our relationship. So let me go down to that. Hang on. The poem that I'm going to read it's about my dad and my relationship with my dad. My dad passed about 4 years ago from Alzheimer's. And when I was young, my dad, of course, was my dad. He was the person in my life, the one. He was my hero. And then suddenly he got remarried, and I was so hurt and so confused and just so disoriented by that whole remarriage thing that I don't think my relationship with my dad ever truly became, truly repaired itself. There was always that level of, I don't know.
Another woman came over and took, obviously, your hero away from you.
Yes, and I was always trying to figure out a way to repair that, and
right.
and it never really truly happened. So I will read this poem. Hopefully, I can get through it fairly well. It's called "Before You Go" by Chiappetta. Lifelines don't tell the origin of sun and shadow displayed in each hand. My palms have their own legends. The left repaired once, the right twice. Futured reminders lie hidden within folds. Like words that remain in the creases of the mind. Each scar brings out the braggart, the historian, a sense of relief. I fear my hands, like tea leaves, tarot cards, and tyranny. Hands represent the imprint of destiny, or perhaps nothing at all. If I look into your palm, what will it reveal? Your distance and indecision? Today, I want to feel your warmth. Compare our creases. So tomorrow, I can feel the radiance, remembering the personal roadmap of your life. That was written in 2009.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does that help you understand?
Yeah. One last question, and I know I used to read your last name. There's always a question. What kind of name is this? Chiappetta?
Chiappetta. It's Italian. It's my husband.
Oh, Italian.
Yeah. And I have no idea what it means. I've heard it means many different things, including little butt cheek. So I have no idea.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and
I have a question.
And excuse me, I just remembered the name of the other lady on staff at Ziegler. It was Alina Roberts.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Alina Roberts, yep.
I have a question for you.
Alan, you go ahead.
I've been an educator for nearly 49, 50 years, Ann. And I would like to think that as an instructor, I've influenced children. I've seen potential in them that they may not have seen themselves. When you were a young adolescent going through your middle school years, was there a specific teacher that saw potential in you and cultivated you and pushed you to be the best possible person you could be?
Yes. Well, Miss O'Brien in 7th and 8th grade, she was our English teacher, and she pushed me to write my first poem. It was called Rats. It was about rats. And it was very short. It was only about 10 lines, but she said it was excellent, and it made it into the school newspaper. Then after that, she just kept pushing me towards reaching beyond my comfort zone, and that's how I got to play the friar in Romeo and Juliet. It's a very funny story because I don't think I ever would have done that. First of all, a girl playing a friar, right? But I had short hair, and so I could get away with it. And so I remember, studying all my lines and interacting with all the other kids, and we learned how to do a tantra. And I went out there, and I had actually a cameo because I was introducing some of the Romeo and Juliet tragedy, and I remember looking out into the audience and seeing my mother and my sister laughing at me. Like, they couldn't believe I was up there dressed like a friar, you know. And I remember being so pissed off that they were laughing at me. Why weren't they going, "Oh wow, this is great"? No, they were actually laughing, like they thought it was funny. I'll never forget.
So was there something that you wrote that Mrs. O'Brien saw in you that you didn't see in yourself that urged you to become creative?
Yeah, I think she recognized that I needed to express myself in a way that I was maybe I wasn't, maybe I was, you know, suffering in some way. She knew about my home life. She knew about my parents' divorce. She knew I didn't have, you know, I was one of those latchkey kids. I was one of the first generations of true latchkey kids. I would come home, because my mom worked and my dad worked and my sisters worked. They were older than me, so I was alone, you know, and so I think she recognized that I needed an outlet, and that outlet was the arts, and I'm so grateful to this day to Miss O'Brien for doing that in me.
One last question, and then I'll let others. Now, do you do anything other than poetry? Do you write prose as well?
Yes, I write pretty much. I write fiction, I write nonfiction, I write essays, I write poetry. I like to write science fiction and speculative fiction. And right now I'm writing my biography about growing up and eventually obtaining my guide dog and my life before and after, and also retiring my first dog and going to my second dog, which is a pretty significant transformation for people. Don't think people understand it. So.
Well, thank you for being on tonight, and I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Yeah, and this is Steve. Congratulations. Is this your first book, I understand?
Yes.
Yeah, I know the feeling because I'm one of Leonore's clients, I guess you could say. But if that feeling you said, did I really put all that out there? And it was like, yeah, but it's exciting. Having the fun is really good, but now the hard part is promoting, like you said. And I know it's not all about selling it, but in a way it is. But I just think by what you read, it was very. I don't have that knack for poetry, or I haven't tried lately, but I like how you do a lot of different kinds of writing. Like you say, science fiction is one of my biggies. But, you know, congratulations and keep up the struggle. We could talk all night about being self-published authors because there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is. And there's a lot of opportunity for self-published authors now that there never was before. So,
yeah.
Good luck
to you. Do you have Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a lot of independent author promotion groups out there and contests and ways to promote your book out there that might help you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and so does, I know once you become a Kindle customer,
yeah.
And I think once you sell so many books, they start offering you other ways to promote your book for free.
That's the challenge. You got to sell enough books to get in that. But, you know, you just keep yourself out there online, you know?
Yeah, well, you just keep going. Just keep going. One book at a time.
Hey, right. Ann, this is Leonore. I had a question because you wrote me before about the possibility of having a signing at an Italian restaurant. Whatever happened with that? Is that still going to happen?
Oh, I'm trying to get two places like that, two restaurant signings. One of them is going to be, way up in Bronxville, New York, which is a little out of my way, but it's like more north, and it would probably get a whole different set of people. And then one in my hometown. Restaurants it's a good idea because, it helps get them to get people in, and then they really only have to give up one table, and then they have the potential of people sitting down, having a meal or a drink, so we'll see how that goes. I'm still setting that up, and this probably won't happen until after February.
That is a good idea, though.
But
I think that's a great idea. I mean, linking that to your Italian heritage,
Absolutely.
and using that as an in,
Well, I'm not Italian, so I don't know. I'd have to lie a little.
Fake it till you make it.
I thought that was very clever of you, and I would really encourage any, especially self-published author. I mean, just think of any possible connection that you can, between yourself and places, to approach. The worst they can say is no, and I actually know somebody who makes jewelry, and she arranged with some coffee shop somewhere to, once a month, a regular thing, once a month to go there and, sit at a table and then sell her jewelry, and it's been pretty successful for her. And as you say, it helps bring people into the establishment as well. So it's a win-win for them. I think that's really neat, and so good luck with that. You're the first person I know who's tried that with a book. I think that's great.
That's very creative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very creative.
Thank you. Yeah. One of my friends suggested it because he knows a restaurant owner, and the restaurant owner was pretty very enthusiastic about it. So we're going to probably work it out, and I'll let you all know.
Great.
Probably sometime in the early spring when people start really walking around again, because it's near the train station in Bronxville. So.
Oh, there you go.
That's super.
And the other.
And when do you propose possibly having your next book done? Do you have a timeline on that, or are you just setting it?
I'm shooting for the draft to be done in August. So I will definitely keep you posted.
Great.
Yeah.
And I want to tell everybody that there are only three photos in Anne's book, Upwelling, and they were taken by her sister, and they're just really, really beautiful. I mean, now that cover photo just blows me away. It's just a beautiful, beautiful close-up of a flower. All the photos are black and white, and we made the cover dark red border, with that black and white photo in the middle, and it's just stunning. And so I hope your sister does more photos for you in the future on any future books, because she's very, very talented.
I plan on having her do some I want her to do a shot of myself and Bailey for the book that will be coming out, and she'll probably have to do some other ones as well. So, but she doesn't want, she's just like my unsung hero. She doesn't want any compensation. She doesn't want any attention. She just wants to create, and I love her for that. She's wonderful.
So, Anne, do you write on a schedule, or do you just do it when the spirit moves you? Because you're saying August, so I would think you'd have to be pretty religious about writing if you plan to have something done by that.
That's a great question, and yes, you do have to have a certain amount of discipline.
Yep.
I think what helped me the most with disciplining myself in the beginning was doing the correspondence courses through the Hadley Institute that kept me disciplined about my studying and about my lessons and things like that, and I think that just flowed over into a lot of other things in my life. And it's very interesting to note that that's a lot of what I lacked growing up as a kid was that discipline, because I didn't get any of that because no one was around to give it to me. So I had to learn all that myself. And I think having that, learning that self-discipline helped me a lot, just in every part of my life, from raising my children to my job, and then, my writing. So
who's your favorite poet? Because I'm assuming you must have read a lot of poetry, just judging by what you've read. You seem to have, I would guess you've read a lot of poetry in your life. Yeah,
we in undergraduate school, I thought at first I was going to get an MFA, a Master's of Fine Arts in creative writing, but I was too afraid to go travel down to the city, and at that time none of the colleges around here had an MFA, so I compensated with that by taking any elective I could in my undergraduate, anything that had to do with either psychology or creative writing. So I mean, I did everything from deconstructing children's books and learning all about, we had this fable writing course where we had to take your favorite fable, like Little Red Riding Hood, and then find out the historic value of it. And Little Red Riding Hood was actually something that they used at oral storytelling way back in Eastern Europe to scare the little girls from going near men.
Yep.
I was just like, wow, that's interesting. Anyway, so I did a lot of that. I read a lot of poetry. Wallace Stevens, interestingly, he's one of my favorites because his none of his poems, I think, are more than 15 lines. And he was originally a banker, and he would write poetry as a way to, to kind of connect himself back to himself after being in this hugely analytic industry.
Yeah.
And he was, some of his stuff is pretty intense. And interesting that he didn't really collect his poetry and put it out. It was his secretary who collected it all and then said, you really should make a book out of it. And he was like, yeah, okay. And who else? Billy Collins, a former poet laureate. His stuff is extremely humanistic and realistic, and I really like the way he juxtapositions. I don't know how to say that word. Juxtapositions the creativity or the human condition with things that you wouldn't think he could connect it with. Like a chair and love. Somehow Billy.
Yeah.
So. There's a lot of poetry out there that's, William Carlos Williams. He's another one we read a lot of in undergrad that I find that, he's extremely empathic. And although I do like some of the rhyming, and Shakespearean type stuff, sonnets and I do know how to write them, and I've taken courses in verse writing and everything. I prefer free verse instead.
Yeah, that's hard to rhyme like every other line every time. It's like I think the free verse is also a definite gift though, because just by like what you were reading, just connecting those images and conveying that feeling, like you said.
Yeah. So. And it's just, and in order to be, to write poetry, I guess there's a lot of practice. I would encourage anybody to either through the Hadley Institute or another means, take verse writing or poetry courses. Join a writers group. I had the benefit of having 20 years in an online writers group, and that online writers group really helped me, not so much with my writing, but with how to take the criticism and how to, and how to be able to, just process the criticism. If somebody really didn't like your stuff and they said it, I mean, I would just be like, I remember, my God, I was like, cutting off my
face. That's tough for any writer is that criticism. You want constructive criticism. It's like, I didn't like it. Okay, that's fine. It hurts, but yeah.
Yeah. Or tell me how I can make it better. Or tell me what you would what would be something that could potentially make my writing better. Leave out a line or try it without this, or those things were really hard for me to take on as a writer, but the more I did it, the easier it was. So being in a writers group is really beneficial to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And a serious writers group where you're trading each other's work. It's not just, oh, that was beautiful. And
hey, everyone wants to hear that. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah.
That's nice. It's beautiful. But you want somebody to say, hey, maybe don't use this word. Use that word instead. That might help it,
Well, that's why we have editors. Yep.
Title. Try this title.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, why not? So that's one of the things that helped me a lot.
Well, good luck on your journey.
Thank you. Do you guys want to hear another poem? I have one more.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it.
Sure.
Oh, hang on. I gotta log into my computer again because it logged off. Hold on.
Annie, did you take the course from Hadley, the verse writing course with Geraldine Lawhorn, or the Elements of Poetry with Vicki Prahan?
No, I took it with Geraldine, both verse writing 1 and 2, and I got to meet her. And I was
excellent.
It was 1998. I got to meet her, and I was like, I was fawning over her. She was laughing. She was like, "I'm not that important." I'm like, "Yes, you are."
She is such a character.
It was wonderful. She had a wonderful interpreter, and I sat with her for 15 minutes and spoke with her, and it was just wonderful. She really helped by writing a lot. Okay. This poem is called "In Those Dark Moments." It was written about my first dog, Verona, and I'm just going to read it. In those dark moments when eyesight doesn't matter, where light burns and stars stay undiscovered, the grip of the handle eases the panic like a mother's hand. Before the fear rises, warm nose finds the way down the hall, up the stairs, into the store. Like the familiar sounds of morning, the light click of toenails on tiles reassures. I grip the handle and follow. The soft jingle of leather and brass and faint canine scent conveys that in those darkest moments, I am not alone. And that's about my Verona.
That's nice.
And this is Lauren. I was listening to you read. I think you read beautifully, but I actually had a smile on my face and a tingle in my stomach because I know exactly what you were expressing, having had dogs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's I'm still trying to figure out how to write that better. I don't know, it's this unconditional love thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
People
think
have been writing about it for billions of years, I guess.
And I want to tell everybody who hasn't read her book, I think her 2 poems in the book about Verona, and there is a photograph of Verona also, a wonderful photograph, and I think those 2 poems are definitely among my favorites. I think they're just absolutely wonderful. My husband and I have had many dogs. We never needed guide dogs, but we certainly, have had and loved dogs, and I can only imagine the specialness of the relationship, between a blind person and the dog and the guide dog. And
especially when Anne expresses about picking up the harness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they are just fantastic poems, and I really congratulate you. I mean, I also wanted to make the comment that an awful lot of your poems, they had echoes in my life too with my experiences. Of course, many of them were unique to you, but I think a lot of your poetry will speak to a lot of different people. And the marriage pot one was just wonderful, because my husband and I have now been married for close to 49 years, and I just love that poem. I just think your poetry is great, so I'm doing all that I can to promote it, to help you.
Oh, thank you. That's just, sometimes I'm speechless about saying so many beautiful things. It's just very touching to me. Yeah.
Is your book available in Braille yet?
Not yet. However, I am working on trying to figure out how to make an audiobook. And, it's a process.
Are you thinking of getting it on Bard books?
Well, the National Library of Congress has a protocol before they would consider one of your books, and I'm still finding out little bits and pieces here and there. Actually, honestly, I haven't had time to really delve into it. But
well,
I know that you.
Yep.
Yes,
I could help you because my book is in queue, so I could give you some pointers if you want.
Good.
And it's Lauren again. Would you consider reading your book yourself? Because you read beautifully.
Thank you. I don't think I'm such a good. I don't know.
How many pages is your book?
It's 60 pages.
Uh-huh.
It's 23 poems. Each poem is about between 15 and 30 lines. So that it would probably not amount to more than, I would say, maybe not more than an hour.
Because you express yourself beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll keep that in mind. I personally don't think I read my poems very well. But I think a lot of people think that way about themselves. You know, when you hear yourself on a telephone recording something, you say, that's me?
Yeah, I know.
I'll think about it. Thank you, Lauren.
Well, I agree, Ann. I think you read beautifully.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need more practice, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Of course, you would have to practice a few times.
Come across very well.
Don't sell yourself short. I think you read very well, and if they want you to do it that way, then great.
I guess so.
Sure.
All right.
I mean, that makes it special because most people, I mean, when they have their books recorded, you know, they're not reading them themselves. They're professionally recorded by somebody else, and I think, I mean, the poetry is just so personal. And I think it would be really special to have you do the reading. But you do read extremely well. You enunciate very well, and I just really liked your intonation for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
Okay. I'm warming to it. I am.
There you go.
Good.
You inspired me to think about taking his first Hadley after the first of the year.
Yeah, it's a thought, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is the hidden benefits of the Branco broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Getting impromptu critique session.
Right. And then
you know this is archived on YouTube, Ann, so you can tell your
friends. I know. Believe me, we're gonna get it up there. I'm gonna have between this and Frederick Bai's interview, I really do feel like a celebrity, and it's really.
You know Frederick Bai?
Yeah.
I've done an interview with Frederick Bai myself.
He's wonderful.
Put that on my to-do.
He's out of Canada.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot to talk about. Wow.
Yeah, he was wonderful. He had some excellent questions, and it was my first interview that I did, you know, in terms of like a professional interview, and it was wonderful. I had such a good time. It was great.
Yeah, you'll have to hook me up with him, Bob.
No problem. I'll do my best.
All right.
Any more questions, Ann?
Yes, I have a comment and
Karen?
I just wanted to say, Ann, I always enjoyed reading your articles in the Ziegler, reading your, you know, about trips you took with your husband and things like that. And the fiction you wrote and things like that. I always found them enjoyable. Most of your poems, did you have a hard time picking out which ones you would put in the book?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I did. The book went through a number of rewrites. You know, I would get it a certain way, and then I would read through it, and, you know, my sister would help me format it, and then I said, no, this poem isn't fitting, so I would take one out, and I would spend a couple of weeks going through my poems and trying to find one to fit. I think the hardest part for me putting this thing together was should I put a table of contents in the book, or should I group things by subject, or should I just not do that and see how it goes? And came to the conclusion that having things grouped by subject matter and stuff is just not working for the book. I struggled with it just didn't flow right, and some of the poems didn't fit in a category, you know. So, you know, I let it sit for a while and concentrated on some other stuff because that's how, if I'm stuck with something specific, a project like something like that, I'll put it aside for a while, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of days, maybe a couple of months. And, you know, I won't pick it up again until I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I think that manuscript sat for a couple of months. And then one day I picked it up and I took it down to the bare bones. I took away everything except for the poems themselves. And I read through it, and I decided what poem I wanted to be my last poem and what poem I wanted to be my first poem. And then I did it that way. I'm like, okay, what do I want to follow with? And then, you know, what would fit with this? And it just kind of strung together like beads on a string. And that seemed to work. And it took all the stress away of, you know, I've got to, you know, make this and I've got to find, you know, it just.
I like how you look at writing like that process, beads on a string, and it like when you were saying about the first poem you read about the words and the phrases and the syllables, and I can relate to that as a writer.
Yeah, that's how it felt.
You finally are satisfied with what you write. You know, you've done the best you can, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I you know, that's kind of how it happened. I put it aside for a while after I did all that with, you know, and then I was like, okay, I got to let it sit here and then see if I like it again in a month. And then it ended up, I liked it, and I said, okay, that's it, and I'm gonna send it to my sister and have her format it for good. And then, you know, it was a short time later that I got in touch with Lenore, and then that was it. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, our time is just about up, Ann.
Yeah, I know. I felt like it had only been 5 minutes.
Oh, heck, it's been an hour pretty much. You've offered a lot to the show, and you've offered a lot to our participants, and the best of luck to you with your book, Upwelling. And why don't you give your website out so we can go check out the book a little further?
Okay. The actual website is www.dworkin.com/Ann Chiappetta / I will.
You may want to spell some of that, Ann.
Spell that. It's www.dvorkin.com/ANNCHIAPPETTA/. If you go to that website, that's my author's page, and it has all of the links to purchase. And then at the bottom, there's a beautiful picture of Verona and a poem about her. And
there's your picture.
If you want to read my blog, that's www.thought-wheel.com. That has a lot of my other writing, and it's all done in a blog format, and it's totally accessible. So you can go there and read some of my other stuff, too. That's all free.
Very good. Well, congratulations and the best of luck with your second book and anything else that you do. Thanks for being with us tonight on Branco Broadcast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Ann.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.